The arena was vast, older than many of the civilizations that still existed in the galaxy. The amphitheater was carved into the surface of the dead world of Krythos 7, where only the most ruthless games were held under the authority of the interstellar dominion. The audience, comprised of hundreds of species, predators, warlords, mercenaries and nobles, filled every towering balcony, their eyes locked onto the sandy pit below. It was called the Trial of Extinction. Tonight, a new participant was scheduled to enter. The announcer's voice boomed, amplified by 100 sonic towers that made every word feel like the breath of a god. Citizens of the Dominion, we gather once more to witness the spectacle that binds us all: combat unrestrained, survival unfiltered. Tonight, we welcome the latest fool to offer their life to the arena, a creature from a primitive world, a human. Laughter erupted from the balconies. Humans were myths to some, jokes to most. The few who had encountered them spoke of their defiance, their insanity, but never of their strength. The Dominion, having conquered most of the known species, dismissed humanity as another stubborn pest, unworthy of serious consideration. After all, what could a hairless biped offer against the genetically enhanced gladiators of the Dominion? Against cyber beasts, psychic warriors, and bioengineered monstrosities? The gates rumbled open. The laughter stopped. From the shadows stepped a lone figure. He wasn't wearing advanced armor. No energy shields flared around him. No elaborate cybernetic implants gleamed from his limbs. He wore a simple suit, flexible, battle-worn matte black with gray plating along the shoulders, chest, and shins. A holstered blade was strapped to his back, but otherwise the man was unarmed. He walked like he belonged there. His name was Marcus Voss. The silence that swept the arena was heavy. Even the audience, used to witnessing countless deaths for entertainment, sensed something strange. Something unspoken. Something ancient. The alien warlords leaned forward. The announcer hesitated, unnerved for the first time in years. "State your designation, challenger." Marcus raised his head slowly, eyes scanning the countless alien faces staring back at him. He spoke not with arrogance but with something far more unsettling: absolute calm. "Marcus Voss. Human." A second gate across the arena hissed open. The first opponent emerged. The Skrelvek brute towered nearly 12 feet tall, its multi-jointed arms dragging along the sand. Covered in natural armor plates, with 6 blood-red eyes, its jaws clicked eagerly. The Skrelvek species were known to pulverize smaller prey within seconds. Many had tried to flee the moment this monster entered the ring. Marcus stood still. The brute shrieked and charged. In the viewing box above, several Dominion generals observed the battle. They were not amused. "Why bother broadcasting this one?" General Orvath hissed. "The outcome is obvious." "Patience," murmured Lord Skryl, one of the more calculating warlords. "Watch the human carefully." The brute lunged, its claws aiming to skewer Marcus instantly. Marcus didn't dodge. Instead, he sidestepped at the last instant, using the brute's momentum against it, grabbing one of its lower arms as it passed. With fluid grace, Marcus spun behind it, planting his foot and pulling the creature's arm sideways. An audible crack filled the air as the limbs snapped at the joint. The audience gasped. The brute shrieked in pain, turning wildly with its remaining limbs. Marcus stayed close, never allowing the creature to gain distance. Each time the Skrelvek tried to strike, Marcus slipped inside its defenses, delivering precision strikes to pressure points along its exoskeleton. Cracks spiderwebbed across the natural armor. Then, with one final motion, Marcus leapt onto the creature's back, drawing his blade in one seamless movement. The short vibroknife hissed as it activated, glowing faintly. Without hesitation, Marcus drove the blade through a small opening at the base of the creature's skull. The Skrelvek's shriek died instantly as it collapsed into the sand. The arena was dead silent. The human stood, breathing evenly, as if he had just finished a morning exercise rather than defeating one of the Dominion's apex beasts. In the control tower, the Dominion's master of the games, Overseer Drenthus, narrowed his reptilian eyes. "This one is dangerous." His attendant, a frail insectoid named Lyartek, shivered. "Shall I activate the secondary waves, Overseer?" Drenthus clicked his teeth together. "Yes. Let us see how far the human can dance." The announcer struggled to maintain the spectacle's energy. Impressive, but far from over. The next challengers enter now. 2 gates open this time. Out came a pair of Narlax predators, quadrupedal, armored beasts with venomous tails and diamond-sharp fangs. Their hide shimmered with bioadaptive plating that shifted colors with every movement. The crowd roared, expecting Marcus to finally fall under the weight of multiple opponents. Marcus simply adjusted his stance. The Narlax circled him, intelligent eyes scanning for weaknesses. They struck together. The first lunged high, jaws wide to bite at Marcus's head. The second darted low, its tail whipping for his legs. Their coordination was impeccable, a design of years of genetic enhancements. But Marcus was already in motion. He slid under the leaping Narlax, rolling forward and rising just in time to slam his elbow into the throat of the charging beast behind him. Its windpipe crushed instantly, and its forward momentum caused it to crash sideways. The other Narlax, recovering mid-air, landed and twisted to strike again. Marcus didn't wait. He closed the distance, running straight at the predator. The creature's tail lashed out again, but this time Marcus caught it mid-swing, gripping it with both hands. Using the beast's own momentum, he twisted the appendage, dislocating the joint, and planted his foot on the beast's shoulder as it screamed. With a final burst of strength, Marcus used the tail like a lever, breaking the creature's spine. Its body went limp as it collapsed beside its sibling. 2 more dead. The arena was now in utter shock. Above, the Dominion warlords whispered nervously. "This is no ordinary human," one growled. "It's impossible," said another. "He fights like he was bred for this." Lord Skryl narrowed his eyes. He wasn't bred. He was trained. They all fell silent. They knew about human training, but none had believed the old records. The Terran military archives spoke of warriors who endured extremes no other species could replicate, who mastered every combat form known, and invented new ones in battle itself. But even those warriors eventually fell to the Dominion during the subjugation wars. Didn't they? Skryl suddenly wasn't so sure. Down in the arena, Marcus stood alone again. The bodies of his enemies littered the sands. More gates opened. This time 6 warriors entered, Dominion gladiators armed with energy spears, cloaked in combat shields, enhanced with exoskeletal armor and neural reflex boosters. The crowd regained its voice, roaring for blood. The announcer screamed, "You face Dominion elite. Submit now, human, or die screaming." Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't even draw his blade. He simply whispered to himself, "Finally." The 6 came at once. They were fast. Faster than any creature Marcus had fought so far. But speed wasn't enough. Marcus weaved through their attacks with surgical precision. The first spear thrust was deflected with a palm strike that shattered the attacker's wrist. The second was dodged with a backward lean so narrow that the blade missed his throat by mere millimeters. The third attacker he disabled with a brutal knee strike that crushed the fighter's reinforced ribcage. One by one they fell. Their technological advantages, their genetic modifications, their Dominion pride, none of it mattered. Against pure, unrelenting human adaptability, it was like watching apex predators learn they were prey. The final warrior managed to land a glancing strike, slicing Marcus's shoulder open. Blood spilled for the first time. The crowd gasped in relief, until Marcus grabbed the shaft of the spear with his good hand, pulled the warrior forward, and delivered a headbutt that shattered the helmet and the skull beneath. The last fighter crumpled. Marcus exhaled, and stood victorious once more. High above, Overseer Drenthus slammed his fist against the control panel. "This is a mockery," he hissed. General Orvath shook his head in disbelief. He was supposed to die in the first round. Lord Skryl remained quiet. Instead, he whispered to himself, "No, this was never about survival. This was about sending a message." And that realization sent a chill down his spine. The human wasn't fighting for his own life. He was fighting to humiliate them, to make a point, to change everything. And in that moment, Marcus Voss slowly turned his head toward the warlord's balcony, as though he had heard Lord Skryl's unspoken thought. He locked eyes with them, and smiled. The smile. That damn smile. It haunted every Dominion warlord who witnessed it from the balcony above. Marcus Voss stood below, surrounded by the wreckage of bodies, breathing calmly, blood drying on his shoulder. Yet that small, calculated curl of his lip cut deeper than any blade. He knows. Lord Skryl gripped the edge of the balcony with his clawed fingers, his mind racing. This was no mere spectacle now. This was a message to the entire galaxy. The Dominion had ruled for millennia through brutality, through overwhelming technological superiority, and through carefully orchestrated fear. But this human, alone and unassisted, was unraveling that fear thread by thread in front of a live broadcast watched across hundreds of star systems. And the audience had noticed. Even the aliens in the arena seats, species once enslaved, species once broken, were starting to murmur. The tension was no longer rooted in anticipation of bloodshed but in something far more dangerous. Hope. Hope that perhaps the Dominion wasn't invincible after all. We must end this. General Orvath snarled. Release the Titan. A murmur of shock went through the warlords. The Titan has not been deployed in over a century, hissed another. It was never meant for the arena. Then it's time it served its purpose. Orvath's voice was trembling with desperation. Lord Skryl closed his eyes, considering. This was no longer about spectacle or tradition. This was war. He nodded. Release it. The arena gates shuddered violently. Even Marcus raised an eyebrow. A deep mechanical groan echoed from beneath the sands, followed by a low hum of energy as the sublevel gates slid open. The very ground vibrated as something massive stepped into the arena. The audience went completely still. From the darkness emerged the Titan-class warform. It stood nearly 40 feet tall, a towering bipedal monstrosity of armor plating, plasma cannons and razor-sharp limbs. Its head was a single glowing red orb, a full AI-driven killing machine built specifically to counter organic threats. This was not a gladiator. This was a weapon of planetary extermination. Behold, the announcer shouted, his voice forced but triumphant. The Dominion's answer to rebellion. The perfect fusion of technology and destruction. The Titan. The crowd roared, but their cheers were laced with nervous energy. Even they sensed the shift. This was no longer a contest. This was an execution. The Titan's voice boomed, synthesized and emotionless. Primary objective, terminate human. Marcus flexed his fingers, rolling his injured shoulder lightly. The blood on his arm had already dried into a dark stain. His heart rate remained steady. Finally, he muttered to himself. A real fight. In the command center above, Overseer Drenthos watched the monitors with glee. Let's see how your human adaptability handles this. Lyartech, his insectoid aide, tilted his head nervously. Overseer, if the human survives this, the message to the outer systems may. He will not survive, Drenthos growled. The Titan is perfection. Even the human capacity for improvisation cannot match it. Lyartech said nothing more. But inside he wasn't so sure. The Titan moved with terrifying precision, its steps shaking the arena as it approached Marcus. Without hesitation it opened fire. Twin plasma bolts shot toward the human at near lightspeed velocities. Marcus was already moving before they fired. He sprinted toward the left, sliding beneath a chunk of debris to absorb the first blast. The second bolt detonated just behind him, sending a shockwave that nearly lifted him off his feet. The audience gasped as Marcus rolled, sprang upright and continued running, straight toward the Titan. The warform adjusted, recalibrating its aim. Multiple mini-turrets deployed from its shoulders, locking onto Marcus's path. More plasma fire rained down. Marcus weaved between shots with impossible agility, reading the automated targeting algorithms by the fraction of a second. His brain worked like a living quantum processor. Each calculation, each muscle movement happening at blistering speed. Predict the pattern. Break the rhythm. As Marcus closed the distance, he vaulted over a collapsed section of arena wall, using it as cover while flanking the Titan's right side. The warform reacted instantly, rotating its torso on a gyroscopic axis to face him. The plasma cannons charged again. But Marcus didn't stop. Instead he pulled something small from his belt, a grenade no larger than his palm, its casing matte black and unmarked. He primed it with a thumb swipe and hurled it directly toward the Titan's midsection. The Titan's AI registered the projectile and fired a microlaser to intercept it midair. The grenade exploded, not with fire, but with a burst of concentrated electromagnetic disruption. For the first time the Titan stumbled. Its gyros glitched for a fraction of a second. The plasma charge fizzled momentarily. Marcus was already beneath it, sprinting between its colossal legs. He reached up and slammed a magnetic spike into one of the exposed service ports along the undercarriage. The spike detonated with a muffled whump. The Titan's right leg buckled. Sparks and hydraulic fluid sprayed into the sand. The crowd screamed, half in terror, half in awe. In the control room, alarms blared across the Titan's diagnostic screens. Impossible. Overseer Drenthos spat. How does he know the Titan's weaknesses? Lord Skryl's eyes narrowed. He studied us. The realization was like acid in his throat. This wasn't random. This was planned. The Titan recalibrated quickly, bringing its auxiliary limbs down to swipe at Marcus. Each blade was longer than Marcus was tall, and twice as fast. One slice caught him across the side, tearing open his armor and sending a spray of blood into the sand. The human grunted but kept moving. The Titan followed, its heavy steps cracking the arena floor. It launched another salvo of plasma, forcing Marcus into a desperate roll that left scorch marks across his back. Pain screamed in his nerves. But Marcus smiled again. Pain is a message. Adapt. Move. He reached another fallen Dominion soldier and yanked free a discarded energy spear. Its power core flickered erratically, but it was enough. As the Titan raised one of its limbs for a finishing strike, Marcus leapt forward, driving the spear upward with both hands. The blade pierced through a joint in the Titan's limb, severing critical control fibers. The limb spasmed and dropped limp. Marcus wasn't finished. With a roar that echoed through every corner of the arena, he vaulted upward, using the Titan's crippled arm as a makeshift ladder, climbing toward its upper torso. The war form twisted violently to shake him off, but Marcus clung on with inhuman tenacity. Reaching the top of the shoulder, he drove his blade deep into the primary sensory node just below the glowing red orb. Sparks erupted, the eye dimming momentarily. Then, with his free hand, Marcus planted a final device, a compact data spike. The spike pulsed, unleashing a virus written not by any Dominion engineer, but by Terran hackers who had reverse-engineered Dominion code during the first failed invasion. The Titan froze. Its systems locked up as conflicting commands tore through its core AI. Then it toppled. The ground shook as it collapsed entirely, throwing up a cloud of sand and smoke. Marcus rode it down like a surfer on a crashing wave. And when the dust settled, once again, the human stood alone. Victorious, bleeding, but unbroken. The arena was deathly silent. Even the announcer was speechless. Millions watching across the galaxy saw it live. Entire sectors saw the Dominion's most terrifying weapon defeated, not by an army, not by superior firepower, but by one injured human with a knife and a plan. Hope spread like wildfire across enslaved worlds. And fear spread even faster through the Dominion ranks. Above, the warlords erupted into chaos. This cannot be allowed to continue, General Orvath shouted. He must be eliminated, now. Lord Skryl, however, remained frozen. His claws trembled, but not from anger. From terror. He understood now. This isn't just one man. This is the warning shot. The vanguard. Sir, one of the aides whispered. Should we deploy orbital strikes? Skryl shook his head. No, he whispered. Not yet. He wants us to panic. That's the trap. Even as he spoke, Skryl's mind was racing, connecting pieces. The message was clear, humanity was back. And they hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to break the Dominion. Down below, Marcus raised his head toward the warlords once again. This time he didn't smile. He simply spoke, his voice amplified by the arena's broken audio system, echoing into every screen across the stars. We're coming. The audience roared, not in fear but in defiance. The Dominion's grip on the galaxy had cracked. And Marcus Voss was only the beginning. The words, "We're coming," reverberated across the arena, through the Dominion's broadcasting networks, and into the countless colonies under their iron rule. Entire systems that had long suffered in silence now paused their labors, their chains briefly feeling lighter. The seed of rebellion had been planted. But Marcus Voss wasn't done. The arena's gates groaned once more, but no new challenger entered. Instead, security drones hovered in, dozens of them, scanning for weaknesses, targeting his heat signature. Each one carried microfusion warheads and energy lances designed for surgical elimination. Engage kill protocol, barked General Orvath from the control chamber above. The Dominion commanders had been humiliated twice in front of the entire galaxy. They would not permit a third failure. Marcus exhaled slowly, his breath misting briefly in the scorched, dusty air. He whispered to himself. Let's see if your machines learned anything. The drones moved like a swarm of hornets, surrounding him in an ever-tightening circle. Laser grids crisscrossed around him, and tiny whirring gyros balanced them with near-perfect synchronization. The announcer's voice finally returned, trembling as he tried to maintain the illusion of control. The Dominion assures swift justice upon this insolent trespasser. Observe the full might of our precision kill drones. The audience leaned forward. No one spoke. Marcus remained perfectly still. His breathing slowed, his muscles relaxed. His bloodied armor reflected the crimson targeting lights, making him look almost spectral, a ghost haunting the Dominion's arrogance. The lead drone chirped as it calculated optimal firing solutions. Its AI prioritized 97.2% probability of instant kill. 100% suppression of rebellion. Collateral damage, negligible. Fire. Dozens of micro-warheads launched simultaneously, their bright trails forming a deadly lattice converging on his location. But Marcus had anticipated it. At the exact millisecond before impact, he dropped flat, triggering a device at his hip, an experimental Terran-designed gravitic destabilizer. The arena floor beneath him buckled, and for a split second, gravity itself twisted violently. The warheads, instead of converging, veered erratically as their guidance systems failed to correct for the localized distortion. Several exploded prematurely in midair, while others veered into the drones themselves. A chain reaction followed. The entire swarm detonated in a brilliant cascade of light and concussive force. The crowd screamed. The shockwave ripped banners from their posts. Flames licked the sky. When the smoke cleared, Marcus remained, battered, bruised but alive. Above him, the Dominion warlords stared in frozen horror. He turned our own weapons against us, whispered Overseer Drens, his voice breaking for the first time. Lord Skryle's claws dug deep into the balcony railing. His usually composed demeanor now cracked under the pressure. He's not improvising, Skryle whispered. He's executing a plan. Every step has been designed to send a message. Orvath snarled. Then we escalate again. Send the guard. Even Skryle hesitated. The guard had not been deployed for centuries, genetically enhanced, cybernetically modified, programmed to slaughter any non-Dominion life form without hesitation. Once unleashed, they were nearly impossible to control. But desperation was now the Dominion's only currency. Do it, Skryle finally agreed. Far below, deep in the Dominion's subterranean vaults, the guard awoke. They stood 9 feet tall, their frames encased in living bioalloy armor that rippled like liquid steel. Their eyes glowed an unnatural violet, pulsing in rhythm with the Dominion's Central Command AI. These were no mere soldiers. They were monsters. They had once been conquered species, long since stripped of free will, reprogrammed to serve as shock troops. Their minds had been purged, replaced with cold, singular purpose. Destroy anything that challenged the Dominion. As the gate lifted again, Marcus watched them enter one by one. Dozens. Then hundreds. Each one silent, disciplined, marching in perfect formation. The ground trembled under their synchronized march. The audience grew silent again. This was no longer entertainment. It was extermination. Inside the control room, Skryle leaned forward. This is the end, he said. But in his gut he felt no comfort. Only dread. The human had already broken every expectation. Could even the guard finish this? Marcus studied the advancing wall of armored giants. All right then, he muttered. Let's change the tempo. From a compartment on his back, Marcus retrieved a cylindrical beacon, one that had been secretly smuggled into the arena days prior by rebel sympathizers hidden within the Dominion's own infrastructure. He activated it. A faint pulse shot into the sky, invisible to the Dominion sensors, but not to the ones waiting beyond the atmosphere. Far above, in the cold void of space, the Terran ghost carrier silently decloaked. A vessel unlike any the Dominion had encountered. It was coated in adaptive alloys that bent light, radar, and even gravimetric waves, rendering it undetectable. On board, Commander Elara Voss, Marcus's sister, received the signal. Signal confirmed. Phase 2 greenlit. The bridge crew sprang into action. Drop pods ready. Ordnance locked. Commence insertion. The ghost carrier launched dozens of insertion pods toward the planet's surface. In the arena, Marcus smiled as the sky above shimmered faintly. The Dominion warlords looked up, confused. What is that? Orvath demanded. Skryle's blood turned cold. They're here. The pods struck like meteors, embedding themselves in the ground surrounding the arena. With mechanical precision, they deployed shockwave emitters that knocked many of the approaching guard off balance. From each pod emerged fully armed Terran special forces, humans clad in advanced exo-armor, armed with weapons centuries ahead of Dominion tech. They moved like predators among prey, opening fire with graviton rifles and pulse disruptors. The guard, designed for brute force engagements, struggled to adapt to the precision, speed, and coordination of the Terran troops. Within minutes, chaos erupted across the arena. The Dominion spectators panicked, many attempting to flee as their illusions of superiority crumbled before their eyes. Lord Skryle watched in stunned silence as Marcus met up with his reinforcements. The humans hadn't come here for mere theatrics. They had come for a rescue operation. Elara approached her brother. You took your time, she said, scanning his injuries. Had to keep the audience entertained, Marcus replied dryly. suppressing a wince as med-drones worked on his wounds. Ilara, he glanced up toward the warlord's balcony where Skryl and Orvath still stood. Ready the uplink, he ordered. Within seconds, the ghost carrier fed the humans a full override of the Dominion's communications network. The Dominion's propaganda channels across the galaxy went dark. Marcus stepped before the nearest camera drone and spoke, his voice now broadcast live to every corner of the Dominion's empire. To every world still living under Dominion rule. To every species shackled, beaten, and silenced. Know this, you are not alone. We are humanity. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we have returned. The final transmission echoed into the stars. Rebellions that had waited for centuries erupted almost simultaneously across dozens of systems. Dominion garrisons were overwhelmed. Prison camps revolted. Slave laborers turned on their masters. The flame had been lit. The collapse had begun. Above, in the balcony, Skryl sank to his knees. Orvath cursed, attempting to order planetary bombardments, but communications had been severed. The age of the Dominion, Skryl whispered, is over. Marcus looked up one final time, locking eyes with Skryl from across the distance. This time his smile returned. The Dominion's once pristine capital world, Vorthas Prime, now trembled under the weight of its own collapse. Skryl, once supreme in his authority, stood paralyzed, his claws shaking as reports poured in from across the sector. Entire Dominion garrisons were either defecting, overwhelmed, or simply disappearing into the fires of rebellion. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled with an iron claw, crushing opposition before it could ever draw breath. But humanity had broken that cycle. And now the walls were crumbling. Down in the arena, Marcus Voss and his sister Ilara advanced steadily with their elite Terran strike team, clearing out the last pockets of resistance. The Guard had been decimated, their programming no match for human adaptability and coordinated tactics. Explosions rocked the control tower where the Dominion warlords hid. Black smoke billowed into the sky. Status report, Ilara called over comms. Eastern corridors cleared. Orbital guns offline. Dominion air defense is non-functional, one of the operators reported. Marcus allowed himself a brief smile, though his bruised body still ached. They had done it. But this was more than just a tactical victory. This was psychological warfare, designed and executed flawlessly to shatter not just the Dominion's control, but its mythology. For ages, the Dominion had painted humans as lost primitives, as broken remnants scattered in the void. Now they were seeing the truth with their own eyes. Humanity had not only survived exile. It had thrived. It had grown patient. And it had returned. Inside the control tower, Skryl clutched at his communicator. "Get me off this planet," he screamed. But his own soldiers, those who still lived, were already abandoning their posts, desperate to flee the rebellion exploding across Dominion space. Orvath, still trying to issue orders through a severed comm network, slammed his fists into the command console. "This is impossible," he roared. "They're a lesser species." "Clearly not anymore," Skryl muttered, his voice hollow. "We were warned." He remembered now, the ancient warnings in the archives of the First War. Do not provoke humanity. If you drive them to extinction, they will rise sharper than before. If you show them cruelty, they will master it. And if you back them into a corner, they will break the walls that confine them. They had laughed at those old texts. Now they were living them. Suddenly, a massive tremor rocked the control tower as Terran dropships slammed into the upper decks. Explosive charges ripped open the reinforced blast doors. Marcus led the breach team personally. The warlord's personal guards were overwhelmed in seconds by superior Terran firepower and discipline. Plasma bolts hissed, kinetic rounds tore through the defenders. The last line of defense fell before Marcus even reached them. He stepped into the command chamber. Skryl and Orvath stood frozen, unarmed, cornered. Their eyes met Marcus's, but this was not a confrontation of equals. It was the judgment of history. You can't possibly understand what you're doing," Orvath stammered. "If you destroy the Dominion, the entire region will collapse into chaos." Marcus raised his pulse rifle, lowering it only slightly. "You've ruled through fear, slavery, and genocide for 5 centuries. The galaxy deserves the chance to rebuild without your kind." Skryl's voice cracked, desperate. You humans are no better." Marcus took a step forward, his voice calm but cold. "We never claimed to be better. We only promised to never be like you." A squad member gestured. "Sir, evacuation protocols complete. Dominion fleet is retreating across multiple sectors. The Empire's falling apart." Then let it fall, Marcus replied. With a simple hand gesture he ordered their capture. The warlords were bound and marched away, prisoners of war who would stand trial before a new galactic tribunal. For the first time, the Dominion's leaders were accountable to the very people they had crushed for generations. Hours later, Marcus and Ilara stood aboard the Terran Ghost Carrier, hovering silently above the now liberated Vorthus Prime. Across the star charts displayed on the bridge's hollow projector, red Dominion territories flickered into shades of neutral gray as rebellions took hold. One by one the Dominion's control points winked out. Hard to believe it's finally happening, Ilara whispered. It's not over yet, Marcus replied. This is only the beginning. Do you think they'll rebuild something better? She asked. Marcus stared out the viewing window, watching the burning cities below slowly settle into silence. That's not up to us anymore. Our job was to break the chains. What they build after that, we'll decide whether any of this was worth it. The comm officer interrupted gently. Sir? The broadcast channels are all open. The galaxy is listening. Marcus stepped forward again. For the second time his voice echoed across every world. This is Commander Marcus Voss of the Terran Free Alliance. To the people of the Dominion, you are free. We offer no empire, no occupation. But know this, humanity watches. And we will not allow tyrants to rise again. Rebuild your worlds. Rebuild your lives. And remember, your freedom was bought not by submission but by resistance. He let the silence settle before finishing. The age of terror has ended. The age of unity may now begin. The transmission ended. In the coming years, entire sectors once under Dominion rule would transform. New alliances were born. Old species, once forgotten under Dominion slavery, found seats at tables of governance for the first time in generations. As for humanity, they returned to the shadows, never occupying, never conquering. They had no interest in ruling, only in ensuring no one ever ruled by fear again. And across the galaxy, children whispered the legend. The day one human walked into the arena alone, and changed everything. The end. Milky Way. If you enjoyed this long-form HFY epic, make sure you subscribe to the Void Narratives. More brutal, thrilling, and mind-bending sci-fi tales are coming, where humanity rises, fights, and rewrites the rules of the galaxy itself. Milky Way.